What makes people buy, or not buy for that matter?
There are millions and millions of consumers who are making snap decisions online on whether they should buy something.
My special guest and I are talking about what will make someone choose your business over another. It might surprise you how simple it really is. Hi, I'm Lindsay Berta, founder of Berta Marketing, a marketing agency designed specifically for small business owners where I handle all of your marketing so you can focus on what you love. My guest and I today have a passion for behavioral economics, which is the understanding of human behavior, and for us, as it applies to digital marketing. Because at the end of the day, your business is all about the people it helps. And your online presence goes much deeper than a website and social posts. It goes deep into the human psyche, and it's the little things that can end up affecting your business in a big way. Today, my guest and I are going to share some real-life experiences and leave you with some actionable tips to create an effective connection online with consumers. I'm happy to introduce my friend Andy Shaw. Andy is a vision setter, mentor, chief strategist, and senior enthusiast at Writ Group. His passion for connecting with people catalyzes his approach to strategy, content, and analytics. He is an advocate for human-centered design and behavioral economics principles, which is exactly what we are talking about today. Hey, Andy, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am doing great. It's holiday season, so it's hard to tell.
Yes, everyone's busy. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Of course.
Yeah. So I know you and I both love this topic so much. It's behavioral economics or marketing psychology. You can call it a few things. But today, yes, behavioral economics, marketing psychology, or more simply put, how to understand human behavior to more effectively reach people online, and getting people to actually buy. Now, I don't know about you, but like when I am looking at a business online, I have one of two reactions as a consumer, right? I have either one or two reactions. I either look at their stuff and I trust it almost instantly. It's kind of like judging a book by its cover kind of thing. And I'll do a little research and that's like, okay, good. I go with this company. Or I have the other reaction where I'm instantly suspicious or something's shady or something's off. And I typically don't buy from that company. And so this is really what I wanted to talk about is what is it that makes that distinction? Like, what is it that makes that distinction? Because it's not really a tangible thing.
Yes,
right?
I'm all in on this. And it's a great time of year to talk about this. So whenever anybody listens to this, it's holiday season now. So everybody's buying things online, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially right now, I feel like there's a UPS truck flying by my house every 30 seconds, right?
Exactly.
Which means there are millions and millions of consumers who are making snap decisions online on whether they should buy something, right? Behavioral economics, which if you're not really familiar with the principles of it, the whole idea is that human beings are irrational, right?
Pretty much.
Right. And not irrational as in like you've got like a crazy nephew who never makes any sense.
Yeah.
Irrational as in like we don't always do the logical thing, right? So science in general is a very logical approach to things. X happens, so then Y happens, so then Z happens. Behavioral economics, and I think what you and I like about it is that if that was the case, we would always buy the cheaper thing than the more expensive thing, always.
Yeah.
Every single time, right? But we don't. Because sometimes we instead get, let's say, the BMW instead of the Honda, when if we looked at the car itself, the actual physical parts of the car, it's pretty much the same car, a little bit nicer things here and there, but the engine isn't that much better, et cetera. But we're like, oh, it's a BMW. It must be $30,000 better, right?
Right.
So behavioral economics can talk to us about some of those things. For this specific thing that you're talking about, the trust factor, we can have some irrational reasons we trust or don't trust something. So for me, it is something like if I can't find the hours you're open on your website, I already don't really trust your business, which isn't really fair when you think about it, right? Because it could just be they're not really web savvy and or they just never remember to put the hours on their website. It has nothing to do with the quality of the service I'm going to get. But for me, that's a little sign that says you're not paying attention to a detail and you're going to make it harder for me to figure it out. And I don't want to have to call. Nobody wants to call anything.
No, we want to avoid phone calls. We want a easiest, convenient way. That's what we want.
Right. Like the path of least resistance, right?
Right.
So as you and I work with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses, so I'm doing that with my brand strategy agency, Writ. I see it all the time that a business will have an amazing product or service or whatever it is, but they almost seem to make it that much harder for anybody to understand what they're about or figure out how to access them, right?
Yeah.
And you know that I moved recently, so I've got a whole...
I know. Yes. You definitely are going to have to share this story because it's the perfect prime example of what small businesses should be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So people should know that I am I am somebody who is quick to leave reviews online, good and bad. Because I also know the power of reviews as like an authenticity measure, right?
Oh my gosh, definitely.
Yeah. So somebody does something really well, I will jump right there and say like, thank you for all the service, et cetera, because I know it matters, right?
Well, I told you before, I was reading reviews on something as simple as buying ice cube trays.
Yeah.
Like that's how ridiculous it is. Like you need.
Yeah. The first step is admitting you have a problem, Lindsay. First step is admitting you have a problem. Yeah. I don't know if I could trust this ice cube tray to freeze my ice. Okay. So you should know that I already put a lot of value in that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a moving company. You know, I've got a family of 5. We're moving across town. And if you think about it, a moving company is one of maybe the most trusting processes you have to do as a consumer, because outside of, let's say, healthcare, right?
Yeah.
And actually buying a house, it is something where you're investing thousands of dollars, right? If you're moving a family, and they have all of your stuff. I mean, everything.
It's your life, pretty much. It's everything you own.
Your life, and not in the one of those like, well, it's just material objects. It's like my kids' stuff. It's keepsakes. It's everything, right? Not only do you have to trust them to actually pack it up well, you have to trust that they won't like steal something. You have to trust that they're going to listen to you, to show up on time.
Yeah.
All those things. The moving process is already stressful enough. I aged in dog years during those few weeks of moving, because the quick story is we basically saw a house on a Zillow email and thought, oh, that's a good house. And then we bought it the next day, and then we sold our house 4 days later, and then we moved 28 days after that.
Very fast.
Yeah, that's everybody kept saying, no, it's going to take forever to find a house. And we weren't those people, but on the flip side of it, it was an insane process. So moving wise, the first thing I looked for was trust, right?
Oh yeah.
I needed to find a company I could trust. And most of us don't know a moving company or a business like that off the top of your heads.
Right.
People have like a hairstylist you love or a doctor you love, but you don't usually have like, you know what, this moving company has always helped me out, unless you move all the time.
Right. I was going to say, because how often are you moving? How often are friends and family moving that they would be like, hey, I have this great moving company. No.
And even then, by the process of moving, you're moving away from the place where you got the moving company from, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
We were moving across town, but still. So I looked for reviews. I looked for a site that looked authentic. Authenticity matters a lot. I know you're a big fan of that word as well, that it looked like they knew what they were doing. It does not mean it was like the fanciest site in the world, but it had descriptions of services. It had business hours for sure. But I had a pretty good sense of what they were like. And then here's the most important part. And I know this is like your pet peeve. I wrote to them to ask for information, and they got back to me the same day.
Yes. That is, I mean, I've had experiences, and I'll let you finish your story before I even jump into this, but I've had experiences like that too, where like I'll reach out to a company and nothing. So I end up going with someone else. And then it's not till way later, they get back to me. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like I already went with someone else. Like they beat you to it, you know?
Right. And I am not ever going to advocate that every business has to feel like they have to stare at their phone all day and wait for somebody to reply. But there's so many easy ways to do it. And even automatic reply that says, hey, confirmed we got your email. and somebody from the team is going to get back to you in a reasonable amount of time, right?
Yes.
That lets me know it didn't just disappear, because a lot of contact forms on websites without any confirmation anywhere else. And it's easy to set up if you have MailChimp, if you have something like Squarespace, et cetera, you can set those things up, or work with a professional you can. It makes you feel like you just kind of shouted into the void and you're never going to hear back.
Exactly. Because you're like, did it work? Did it go through? But like those automations that doesn't require anybody, doesn't need any manpower. It's all automatic, right? So you send that email, that contact form, and you get, like you just said, that reply back. We'll get back to you within, 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah. So the person in charge of it got back to me. He talked me through my concerns, which weren't even specific to him, just general, like, how do you make this happen? I mean, I didn't really know. I hadn't moved in 10 years.
Yeah.
I didn't have kids the first time around. Just a lot of random questions, which we don't have to get into here, but that helped me feel confident, right?
Yeah.
He was going to get me a quote, and then he did get me the quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the quote was probably higher than I initially would have guessed, although I'm just taking shots in the dark. But because of the value I'd already seen, I knew this wasn't a case of somebody just throwing a number out there just to throw a number out there, right?
Right.
We already talked about the value we put on higher prices. In this case, moving wise, nobody wants to spend a ton of money, but that's a case where you can justify it to yourself. It's worth spending more money to not have somebody who's just going to throw my boxes in the back like they're stuffed animals, right?
Exactly.
Just whipping them around. And I looked this up beforehand, but there's a behavioral economic principle of irrational value assessment where we put a higher value on things that cost more, even if you can look at the bullet point list of like company A and company B both offer moving, they both have a box truck, they both have 5 people show up for the job. But if one costs more, you might actually think you're going to get a better service, right?
Yeah, exactly. You get what you pay for kind of mentality.
You get what you pay for. And sometimes that doesn't turn out to be true. So all of us have had some things we bought. We're like, why did I spend this much money on this piece of garbage? But in this case, service industry wise, I think you can make a pretty good case that if you have bargain basement prices because you're freaked out, your customers aren't going to want to pay.
Yeah.
What you're actually signaling could be that our service isn't that great. You're not going to get a lot for it, so we're going to charge you a bare minimum. And so you can get lots of customers, but it might be those who just want you for the price. So.
Right. And that does go both ways too, because if you are also charging a lower price, there's also a respect factor there. So the customer might not show as much respect either. So it affects both parties in different ways.
Respect is a huge part of it, right? Because I spent a pretty good chunk of change on the movers, I also respected them a little bit more in a weird way, right? Now I had more I expected them to do. So I wasn't looking, I wouldn't have expected, and they did not cut any corners, right? If you spend $100 for movers, you're just practically expecting they're going to throw it in with a trash bag. So they definitely took their time. All the experience was great. But the biggest thing for me beyond the quick customer service up front was after the move was done, they sent that follow-up email that said, hey, thanks for your business. Can you please make sure you rate us online? It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And they made it so easy because the email itself had the link and I had to click it and I could tap it out on my phone. And they got this great review that I barely had to put any effort into. But I already know, because I just did it, that I'm going to look at that review and say, whoa, wait a second. Okay, so this other family of 5 just moved and had a good experience, right?
Yeah.
Because they made it easy.
And I know sometimes, especially small business owners, sometimes too, they might be like, oh, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to ask for a review. And it's like, no, people are way more than happy to do those things. I know if someone sends me, a review form or something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, sure. Or sometimes I'll even ask, can I leave you a review? People are definitely more than happy to do that. But like you said, make it easy for them, because anything you're requesting, or even simply just having an online presence and wanting to find new clients or new customers, none of that hard work should fall onto the prospect or the client. It should be so easy for them that they don't even have to think about it.
It is actually part of your business to do that. It is not extra. That is the business.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can't get your customers who loved what you did to speak highly of you in a way that makes it as easy as possible for them, then something is off, right?
Yeah.
If you make it super easy for them, and especially get them in the moment. So I love how you said sometimes you just ask them right there, or you send a follow-up email that day. If they would have asked me a week or two later, I was so drained and overwhelmed from like the overall move. I don't, even though I wanted to, I think I would have been like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, I really want to. And then 2 weeks would have gone by, and then a month would have gone by. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I ever did that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'll get to it. But yeah, but when those positive feelings are kind of fresh in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'll definitely do it. Hopefully it's positive feelings that are fresh in your mind. You know what I mean?
Right. And I will say on the flip side, if I had a bad experience, it would have still been worthwhile for them not to send the automatic review thing. And that's something you got to check too. Like maybe don't make it automatic. Maybe that's an email you kind of check.
Yeah.
Maybe that email is, hey, we heard you had a tough experience today. We would love to find out like what we could do next time to improve. And you might get some really good feedback there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I had that experience. I had a lot of experiences. I was getting somebody to install this new TV, and the people who were supposed to do it didn't show up. Right. And there was a miscommunication basically on the back end that I couldn't have done anything about, but I was getting kind of frustrated because I didn't have a lot of time to get this done.
Yeah.
And I was at my house between a certain time frame, right? And they didn't show up.
It's like, we'll get there between 8 a.m. and midnight.
Oh my gosh.
Like it's always that.
Thank you. Get there between January and March.
Right.
So the company reached out after and said, hey, we heard this didn't go well. What can we do going forward for other future customers to make it up to them? Yeah. Now, most people can blow it off, but all you need are a few customers who give you some valuable feedback. And I gave them a pretty straightforward way that they could probably fix it in the future. That made a lot of sense to me. Yeah, you'll probably get some people like, well, screw you. I don't want to deal with you anymore. But that's human nature, right?
Right.
But if you get a few of them who give you good feedback, listen to them.
Yeah. And, you know, even if you get a not so great review or a bad review, it's a great opportunity to show, like if it's a public review, it's a really great opportunity to respond. Well, first of all, you should be responding to good and bad reviews that you get online. Always reply to them. But if you do get a bad review, it's a great opportunity to show the world that you are willing to step up. You are willing to fix it. You're willing to make it right. You're willing to, discuss it. But if you just kind of ignore those reviews and let the good and bad just kind of float out there with no response, people are just going to take it as it is instead of how would you respond to it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It can even be helpful. Not that we have to talk just about reviews, but it can be helpful to even have people who had a pretty good experience. Not every single one has to be 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Right. Having people who are like, yeah, it went pretty well. I'd give it 4 stars. I would have liked if they did this or that. There are tons of studies that say that looks more genuine than if every single one is 5 stars, because that can
100%.
make a difference of, hey, this seems a little fishy, because there are sites that automatically it's all fake, right? Those reviews.
Yeah. Well, like you said, with everyone Christmas shopping and stuff right now, I was actually shopping online and came across a site like that. And it was all 5-star reviews, every single one, hundreds and hundreds of them. And I'm like, I don't trust this. And then not only that, the product was like marked down like significantly. And I'm like, this seems fishy. Even though everything was perfect, it was almost too good to be true. Yeah. So there is a balance there of being, there's so many things we could talk about, everything from aesthetics to design to, easy to navigate, all of these things that subconsciously we think of as trustworthy. Yeah. But again, if something's too perfect, that can be suspicious as well. So there is that fine balance between,
there are things you have to have on a site, just as a standard, right? So if you're going to accept payment, right? Having the logos of the like card companies that you accept, like Visa, MasterCard, etc.
Yeah.
That alone can boost the rate of people completing the form.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because without that, it makes people think, okay, what's going to happen with this card info? So having, the thing we see all the time on a site, the standard logos can make a huge difference, right? Having something simple about a refund policy, like a one sentence, like, hey, if you're not satisfied, please contact us. So people know, all right, if this doesn't go well, I'm not totally up the river, right?
Another big one is having a secure website. I see this.
You pretty much have to for Google.
Oh, yeah. My gosh. I see this so often. It's crazy. Just websites that aren't secure. And again, it's that trust factor, because even if it's not a website that's taking your payment or taking anything, a lot of times, most of the time, Google or whatever search engine or whatever, browser you're using will show that pop-up. Hey, this site isn't secure. It might be trying to steal your information. Do you wish to proceed? Most people click off of that so fast. And there you go. You're pretty much roadblocking all your website traffic. Yeah.
And again, that has nothing to do with the quality of your service. And I think that's probably our big message today. Everybody should put on a sign. What am I doing that reduces the perceived value of my business that has nothing to do with the actual business?
It's almost
a long sign, but people shouldn't have it because it could be helpful.
It's almost those two things should be completely separate. Your actual business, that's your actual business. You know what's going on, all that. Now your digital side of things that you're presenting to the world, you have to look at that with a completely different set of eyes, so to speak. Because something you might do in person or in your actual business might not translate well digitally. So you have to kind of readjust how you're doing all of those things and making sure that it's done properly for the digital sense.
I've got a great example for you. Let's full of examples, right? So, know that I work in like branding, right? That's my big thing. That in a sense, branding anymore is how you present yourself online. A lot of it's in person too, but online is what people almost think of, right?
Yeah.
If you run something like, let's say, an auto body shop, right? You're a mechanic. And people love going there because your team, people like can trust them. They don't feel like they're getting kind of screwed over by the mechanic. You say something like, yep, if that's what we need, that's what we need. The place is clean. The appointments are done on time. All those things are great. You still have to be able to translate that online because most people are going to, they don't have a yellow pages really anymore, right? They have to go online to find it. And if that's the case, something about your online presence has to convey a lot of super intangible things.
Yeah.
Right. You can put a few things to help them trust you, right? Like that you've got certified mechanics, right? That you might carry Goodyear tires or something. Like, okay, that all seems legit. But so do a lot of other mechanics, right?
Right.
So something about your branding and your marketing approach with your website has to convey a lot of things that are otherwise really hard. Now, there are ways to do it that in a 5-second scan of the site might make people feel like I can trust you. It could be a photo
of a couple
of the mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing if I'm you, Lindsay, and you're talking to that auto body shop, you'd say, well, you know what? What if you had a photo of you all like working on a car or something? People could see, oh, these are the people who are working on my van. They seem like nice people. Great. That's one thing.
Even down to color choice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So if you have, which I've seen something like a mechanic shop, I'm going to take a sweeping generalization here, that you see a lot of like black backgrounds with like red text, that's something
very harsh,
very like early MySpace, right? It's hard to look at. That does not give you a comfortable feeling that this is a place I'm okay spending, $900 to get.
It doesn't give you that warm, welcoming vibe. Yeah.
And what can be confusing is that people say, well, I'm not like a warm and fuzzy person. I don't want like pinks and yellows and so forth, and they confuse what are traditionally feminine colors versus a warm environment. You can have a strong brand that's powerful or in this case, it like pops out and not be quote unquote feminine. It's more about how you're presenting yourself that you can be an inviting place, right?
Exactly.
That stuff can matter before they ever step a foot in your door. And if you're doing really well and they step a foot in your door, the online experience equals the one that they have in person. Because if the online presence looks amazing and they walk in, somebody's like, what do you want? Right?
Yeah, because the expectation is already high. The expectation is already up here that, wow, they feel like really inviting, really warm. But like you said, if you walk in and that expectation is not met, gone. But then if you set the bar too low online, they might not even come in at all. So
I always think of this is kind of stereotypical, but I think of like the Walmart experience, right? Walmart's brand that you see is kind of like a warm and fuzzy thing, right? It is a lot of like catalog models who are running around getting like the big family dinner and the kids are laughing and everybody's super well put together. And you walk into some Walmarts and it's stuff everywhere and it could seem like a calamity and people are shouting at each other.
Yes.
And it doesn't. Now Target, on the other hand, has an experience that I think more closely mirrors their brand.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think it's a wild thing to say that some people will just go to Target just because it makes it feel included and like they're going to a destination. Walmart sells many of the same things, sometimes the exact same things, right? In some cases, lower price. And to bring it back to that, you can get the same thing at Walmart, maybe for a little bit less than Target. Why don't you go to Walmart every time?
Exactly. I know. And it's funny you were saying about the website matching, the actual experience. So I actually have an example of this, and this was from years ago, but and this is also proof too that like everything that we're talking about, these aesthetics and everything like that, this transcends borders, languages, cultures. It transcends everything. It's innate human reactions. And so I had a friend who is French. She was coming over and going to stay with us for a couple of weeks. So of course, close to New York, I'm going to take her to New York. So we're sitting there booking a hotel. We had already kind of chosen a hotel, but couldn't remember exactly the website or whatever. We just remembered the name. So we go online and we're searching for this hotel. We find two websites, same name, both in New York. And we're like, oh crap, which one is it? So I have them both pulled up on the screen. Keep in mind, this was even like 14 years ago. So, I mean, this doesn't change. So we pull up both of these sites. One site is like fresh, modern, sleek, looks welcoming, looks like a place you'd want to stay, right? The other website looks like it was like built like one of the first websites ever, like probably early 90s, like not updated since. And without hesitation, my friend goes, oh, it has to be this one, meaning the well-designed website. And me with my marketing background is like, I understand why you're saying that, but I'm still not sure. And so we had to dig a little deeper. And like, this is like we said here too, not making it convenient for the end user, because we really had to search for exactly where each hotel was, because we wanted one that was close to Times Square. So anyway, after a little bit of digging, we finally figured out which site it actually was. And guess what? It was the horrible website. That was, and we were like, oh no, like we were questioning whether we wanted to stay there or not. But we had looked at a third-party site then and saw some updated photos and stuff like that. And whatever, it was nice. It was an older hotel, but it, added to the charm kind of thing. But anyway, it's like, and even that old site, I was not even comfortable putting in my payment information through that site just because it looked so dated. I'm like, well, what else is not updated? So I ended up booking, I think, through the third-party site or whatever. But it just goes to show you that without hesitation, she immediately assumed, based on nothing but the look of it, that it was that other hotel. And they would have won the business had, we not dug a little deeper.
That's a little digging.
Yeah.
We can make the same correlation to social media presence as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we haven't really tackled that, because it's not just websites. And for some businesses, it's not about the website at all, because you don't have the type of business that honestly needs a robust website presence. You might have it just for search purposes, but more or less you're selling, let's say, all your stuff through like Instagram, right? And you can pretty much just do Instagram. I'd be the first person to say I've absolutely bought things just because of an Instagram ad, even as I'm like, I've designed Instagram ads. Like I know exactly what's happening here. Buy it anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a social media presence, if you do it well, can help solve a lot of things too. So that mechanic example we had, I wouldn't assume that any small business has a ton of time in their hands, right? They are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And my eternal advice is always, nobody's asking you to be on 6 different platforms. In fact, please don't.
Yeah, don't do that.
Pick one platform and do really, really well at it, right?
Yes.
And by the way, that platform does not have to be Facebook if that's not where your audience is as well.
People just find where your audience is. Yeah.
If you have a younger audience and you want to do TikTok, then go do TikTok. But also, if you don't have that audience and nobody from your business is on TikTok, don't join it just because you've heard that's where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Right. So
you don't have to dance if you don't want to.
Right. You can leave your friends behind. So find your one thing, make that presence, and then that can also help people say, oh, okay, here's like behind the scenes, how you put together like your crafts, if that's what your business is, right?
Yeah.
I know even in your case, like if you talk some about, here's the marketing principles that I use in my job.
Yeah.
If I'm a small business looking at that, it helps you seem even more trustworthy. Like, okay, so she's explaining some of this stuff. Yeah. And not just throwing a logo up on the site and saying, no, I've done this. Just trust me.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah, it's like social media is so great for positioning yourself as an expert, because you can share that value, that knowledge. You can share the behind the scenes. You can share, real time kind of what you're working on, that sort of thing. Stuff that you can't really do on a website. You could have a blog on a website, which I highly recommend. But yeah, social media really gives that human element to it. Because people work with people. So we want to see what they know, what they're doing, what they're offering.
Yeah. And if you're doing all of it right, you don't have to close the deal on every social media post, on every blog post.
Right.
The homepage of your website should tell a lot, but doesn't have to tell every single thing. So please avoid the desire to shove every piece of information about your business on your homepage. All of it is just helping to shape people's opinion so that they pick up the phone or email or send a text, whatever it is, right? That's all you're trying to do with any of that stuff. And then when they see you in person, assuming there is an in-person thing, just make sure that experience isn't a jarring difference from what they've already experienced.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing too, is make sure everything is cohesive. So like your website, whatever's going on in your website, whatever's going on in your social media, whatever's going on in the actual business, that it all aligns and it all matches.
You know what's a tricky way to do that? Go through the process yourself, or have a friend do it. So tell your friend, okay, I want you to try to set up like an appointment with me, right? I'm not going to tell you anything more about it, especially a friend who doesn't know too much about your business. Have them go on your website, or whatever it is, have them do all the things, fill out the form, and start to see like what email do they get in response? Does it show up when you think it's going to show up? Does it show up at all?
Yeah.
Right. Do they get a reminder email? If they click around and then want to go to your bio to find out more about you, do you make it impossible for them to do that because you send them to some landing page and they have no idea where they are anymore? Right. So figure out a couple processes. I mean, we talk about that in our field, but that's something you can do today. And I bet you're going to find a hole somewhere.
And two, there's so many things that people can do too, because I actually had a comment on a video where someone said, oh, marketing has been a waste of money for me. Referrals have been my best advertising. And I think I said this in a previous blog and things too, but there's so much, and no shade to this person, but there's so much wrong with that statement. There is so much you can do for absolutely free, as long as you have the time to do it yourself. And then on top of that, word of mouth is in fact marketing.
Yeah.
So
that, I think people equate marketing with dollars, right?
yes.
So if branding is telling people what your business is about, marketing is just making sure they know about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And for some people, let's take church, for example, right?
Yeah.
Church, for the most part, gets by on word of mouth, right? It is people inviting people to the church service, etc. And I'm not here on this podcast to talk about church as a business, but the general idea of it's a word of mouth kind of thing. You'll see a billboard for some huge church sometime, but for the most part, for decades upon decades, churches continue to have attendance because somebody has told somebody to come to a church service, right?
Yeah.
That's marketing. It's a different form of marketing. But if they tell somebody to go to a service and that person goes on their website, finds out what time the service is, and makes sure, like, say, the church follows the same stuff that they believe in, good. Now you've done like the conversion stage of marketing, and then they show up. So you've kind of gone through the funnel. A business doesn't have to have a $800 a month Google ad budget,
right,
to necessarily succeed, especially if you're not doing the basic stuff. Now, there are some that you have to help really stand out. There are fields where you just got to spend some money, but that's not all of them.
Right, exactly. And with I like what you said about when you said, okay, they're going to hear about it, but then they're going to go to that website. And that is so true, because even if word of mouth is doing great, people still, and I mean, I do, if someone tells me something word of mouth, they tell me about a service or a business, I'm like, okay, great. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to Google it and I'm going to learn more about it. Does it align with me? Okay, how can I contact them? All that stuff.
Yep.
So even if word of mouth is working great, there's still that extra step people are taking to kind of research you online anyway. And again, the digital aspect of it is something you have control over. You don't have control of what people are saying, word of mouth, who they're telling. They might not even be telling your target audience. So to have that online presence gives you control over that word of mouth marketing.
Most of us find out what movie to watch next because somebody has told us, oh my God, you have to check out this movie, right?
Yeah.
Now, not every movie. Some of us just go to Netflix and scroll forever and eventually watch another episode of Friends, right?
That's me.
Right. But a lot of it's like word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
So it's whatever the new Marvel movie is out. Some people wait to say, okay, is it any good? And you see people gushing all over the place. You've got to go see this thing. Your best friend just saw it. Then you probably go online and go check out a trailer if you haven't seen one, right?
Yep.
Or maybe you're already past that stage and you go and you want to get some tickets online and you see the movie poster, which is marketing, right? Above the price of the tickets. And the movie poster is probably super well designed, right? If it was thrown together by an intern, you might say, well, wait a second, this doesn't look like it's going to be that good, to go back to your website example, right?
Right.
All of those little steps in the transaction convince you that, yep, this is what I've heard about. I believe it now to be true. And then you end up going to the movie. But if somebody said, well, how come you decided to go see this Marvel movie? Oh yeah, my friend told me I should see it. Was it your friend, or was it the actual trailer for this movie that came out a year ago that you actually saw before another movie? You forgot all about it. Your friend mentions it. You're like, oh my God, that is, I think I've heard about that. That's
right. Yeah.
So they'll say it's word of mouth, but it's not always word of mouth.
Exactly. There's a lot of touch points in between there. And I think it's something like between 7 to 20 of those touch points it takes before people make that purchase decision.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. It's 7 to 20. I like to think of, let's say, like a flower shop, right? I try to buy my wife flowers pretty regularly because
that's nice.
Well, she's a nice lady. I like her a lot. So good. I go to flower shops pretty regularly, right?
Yeah.
I can get flowers a lot of different places. But there is one I pass a lot. When I moved to York, before I even had a wife, I passed this place all the time. I was not in a place to buy flowers, which is a different story. And yet, when I was ready for it, I passed it a bunch, and then I saw a few mailers for it.
Mm.
And then, what do you know? I needed flowers every day. I got it. I had a pretty good experience. The flowers stayed fresh for a while.
Yeah.
And I went back. And then I got on their email list, right? Now I'm getting some specials and so forth. And while I still occasionally go somewhere else to get them, that's probably my main place to do it. But it took a while until I was ready to do it, which doesn't mean the marketing early on didn't work.
I'm so glad you bring that up.
You can't assume your customer is eager and ready to put their wallet out every time you put out an ad, a Facebook post. That's not how it works. Not everybody's in different stages, right?
Exactly. Oh, I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's so true. Like you said, you saw it when you weren't ready, but it was always top of mind. So whenever you were ready, they were one of the first ones you thought of. Mm-hmm. And that's why marketing, it's like you could do marketing for 3-6 months before you, or a year, sometimes even before you see a lot of traction, because people need to either be in that purchase decision, place in their lives, or they just need time to trust you or get familiar with you, depending on what the product or service is, especially service-based businesses, depending on what that service is. Sometimes it takes longer for people to feel you out. Am I going to work with this person? Kind of thing.
Yeah. If you have something, let's say like a cleaning service that you're offering, most people aren't on a daily basis thinking, oh, I got to find a cleaning service, right? You have to be at the right point in life, you have the right income, all those things to get a cleaning service. Mm-hmm. You do want to be in front of them when they're ready to make that decision. So that could be a social media post that pops up at the right time.
Yeah.
It could be a Google search ad, which in that case is money you're putting in because they search for cleaning services, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and maybe you pop up at the top. Great. But maybe it is that word of mouth you heard from somebody, and then they look you up and you have a website that's ready to go, right?
Yeah.
Some of it can be luck, but a lot of luck is just being prepared for whenever good things are about to happen to you. Like you have to.
I heard luck. There's no such thing as luck. It's preparation meets opportunity.
That's
exactly what it is, really, if you think about it.
Yeah. So if you are prepared, then those things will happen more repeatedly because you've actually set yourself up for those things to happen.
Yeah.
If it's a quick hitting kind of thing, if you sell something that you don't need any decision time to make, you don't always have to worry about that. But most businesses don't do that. They have somebody has to make a conscious decision like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go get my Christmas tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are tons of Christmas tree farms in this area. So who did the legwork in advance? If it's in the fall and it's like one of those freight farm kind of things, which you will never catch me dead at, which of those did the legwork to make sure that they had raving fans who would keep coming back, who knew how to find out if they were still open in the pandemic? I mean, all those little things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Add up.
And there's just so many reasons to have a strong online presence. Because like you just said, even about the pandemic, if you have a social media presence and you're sporadically posting and maybe you haven't posted for 6 months, a year, and especially in this time period that we're in, if I'm looking for something and I'm checking you out online and I see you haven't posted in 6 months to a year, probably the first thought that's going to cross my mind is like, oh, I wonder if they're still in business. And then I'm going to have to dig even deeper, which requires work on my part, which is going to sometimes be a deterrent from people, to buy. So there's just so many little touch points, even if word of mouth is working, is working. Even if word
it's working. Oh, I like marketing. That should be, you should
working.
That word. Are you working? Marketing.
Yeah.
I can sense that somebody can listen to all of this and say, hey, Lindsay, Andy, first of all, you both sound great. And I'd say thank you. Second, this sounds like it's a lot, right? I'm running a business by myself where I've got like 3 people on my team and we're just trying to keep up with orders, or we're short staffed because of the pandemic, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that I'd say 2 things. One is that you don't have to do all these things right away. It's
right.
The pressure you might be putting on yourself. You need to remember like what's going to be the most effective. So pick a couple of those things. If your website's doing pretty well, But you have never taken that step to, let's say, get a simple email list set up so people can find out updates. That's a great thing. That'll make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Pretty much right away, right?
Oh, yeah.
You've never really dabbled in search ads. You've got a little bit budget available. Then talk to somebody who could set that up really well and see what works, and then keep adding on to there. It's not all have to be done
right.
But the other thing is, if you are at the same point next month and expecting different results, but you haven't done anything differently because you're busy, you're never going to like see that progress. There's always going to be a reason to not do things. The businesses that are really successful found a way around it. They just did.
Yes, exactly. Right. And it is true. We all are really busy, especially small businesses are super busy. But they're, like you said, there does come a point where you're like, okay, I need to prioritize this at some point because nothing is changing. And if you want to grow your business, or you want to be less stressed, or even if it's something as simple as, I just want more free time and I don't want to be a slave to, my business and doing things, all the time and never getting to these other more important things. Like you said, if you have the budget, you can outsource a lot of those things.
Yeah.
So someone else can take care of it. If you do feel you have a little extra time, start, like you said, start with one thing. And if you're able to, maybe you start with posting to social media regularly, or, sending out a regular email blast, things like that. If you can handle that, keep building on it. But then when you feel like, okay, I'm getting to a point where I can't build anymore, I have no more time. Then definitely think about outsourcing it, because it's only going to help you in the long run.
Yeah. And honestly, that is why people tap into people like us.
Yeah.
Because this is what we like to do, but also we can do it faster and more efficiently, rather than if I had to figure out how to like fix pipes in my house, I can do it. It's going to take me like 8 hours longer because I'm doing YouTube videos and stuff like that, right? I could probably eventually fix something. Yeah. I've done that route, right? If I didn't feel like I need somebody. But sometimes if I can't, I will just pay the person to get it done in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't make me any less of a homeowner. Right.
Exactly.
It just means that sometimes you outsource things when possible and the budget allows, because I had more important things I needed to focus on.
That only you can focus on.
That only I can focus on. So I know you handle marketing for a business, but there's other parts of the business you wouldn't be able to do no matter what, because it's their business.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. So you as the business, you can't be replaced in certain areas. Oh, God, just like you said with the homeownership thing. Okay, yeah, sure. You could spend 8 hours trying to learn how to fix this leaky pipe or whatever it is. Yeah. But is that 8 hours going to take you away from maybe, your daughter's recital or your kid's soccer game or whatever it is? Where's your time more valuable to you? So if I have to pay someone to get something done in 30 minutes, but I'm paying, more for that, it's probably worth it, because now I can take that other 7.5 hours and put it into what's more important, or what I can only do.
No.
Yeah.
So part of it's that just understanding what's worth delegating. And then there's a whole other conversation about business owners thinking, well, that's great, but I don't even know if I really need marketing, which for us is kind of a non-starter. But there's that part of it too.
Yeah.
But it's figuring out, let's get a couple tasks done. It doesn't have to be all those things. And then the other flip side of it is brand wise, because I always bring it back to branding, because that's what I do.
Oh yeah. Well, it's really the foundation of it.
It's a foundation, right? So that moving company, to bring it all the way back to that.
Yeah.
They didn't have any confusion in what they are and what they're good at and what kind of people they help. Like, it was residential homeowners in central Pennsylvania. And they can handle families. And I'm like, great, that's what I need, right? Because some movers, I couldn't even tell, like, do you move large families? Or are you just doing like apartments? Do you have access to a big truck? All this stuff, right? So even in our own rebrand, so my agency becoming Writ Brand Strategy Group, part of it was I didn't want to have any confusion on what we really want to do, which is brand strategy, right?
Yeah.
And there are lots of businesses like mine that can offer all types of different services. I'm like, I want to do just brand strategy. If you have a business where somebody goes up to you at a holiday party and says, hey, so you have a business, right? What do you do? And you can't tell them quickly without a lot of caveats or like, and we also, that's the way you have to describe your business. Just think how much harder it's going to be when somebody can't directly hear from you.
Yeah. Right? Exactly. Yep. I'm working with a new client right now. And that's one of the first things that they're very new. So we're working on, laying the foundation as far as branding goes and all of that too. And that's the one thing I said to them. I was like, if someone asks you, you need to be able to tell them in like one sentence.
Yep.
One sentence.
That's one sentence, right? Yep. So our thing now is we are who you go to when your brand is ready to transform. And that's that.
Nice.
That's it, right? Like that. Because that'll take out huge companies aren't going to come to us because we're not a good fit for them. That's not how they think of their brand, right?
Right.
But a startup or a growing business is like, oh my gosh, we like had this brand put together by like my cousin's neighbor's hairdresser, and it's probably time we got like a legit brand together. Great.
Yeah.
Another example from my own life is that my wife and I run, as you know, an entertainment troupe, right?
Yes.
The Oxymorons improv troupe. The Oxymorons have been around for 11 years now. We somehow survived the pandemic. I just did a corporate show in Maryland this past weekend, and North Carolina not that long before that.
Nice.
So we've been around for a while.
Yeah.
What really helped us, other than unbelievable just perseverance through the worst bar shows you could possibly imagine.
You paid your dues.
Well, we paid some dues. Sometimes we literally paid to perform. Was that we were initially like, okay, we're like a comedy troupe and we're trying to be kind of everything to everybody. Once we just started saying that we are the entertainment option for your event, because we can also handle murder mysteries and trivia and all this stuff, and we just like we are the entertainment option. We've been there, done that, and just made it simple. We started getting so many more people because it was also easy. Anybody who's like, oh, we really need somebody for an event, somebody else would say, yeah, the Oxymorons have done their entertainment. Like they'll take care of it. They'll figure out a way to make your event great. And then we can customize and all that stuff. But it's not like, okay, so they do this improv comedy. It's kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway? And then 10 minutes later, like, okay, so what do you all do?
Yeah.
What is the actual thing that you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Because when your message is clear, when someone's looking for that, they're going to pick you out of a crowd because it's already in their mind what they're looking for. And you're going to be the one they come to. So it's like people might think, oh, if I, offer this and offer that, and we do this and we do that and whatever. Maybe you can do all those things, but maybe for your marketing, actually focus on one area.
Yeah, Amazon could do all those things because they started out basically just selling books, and then they added that and added. Yeah. So now they have I think they've got like health insurance now. It's kind of nuts, right?
What?
Yeah, and they can own Whole Foods and stuff like that because people are now associating them with a larger brand that's available for anything in your life. But that would never work for a small business like us. And on top of that, when we started to be more definitive on here's what we do, we also were able to increase our prices, right?
Yeah.
Because before it's almost like we were asking permission to perform, right? So even if we got an agreement, like, hey, we might be a good fit, and maybe you can give us this amount of money. And now it's here's what our service is, here's what our price is. And if somebody's like, oh, you know what, that's out of our budget, we say, you know what, totally get it. Here's a couple other options from other entertainers in the area that might be a good fit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
And that's really good too. It shows professionalism. It shows confidence that you are able to be like, hey, if we're not a fit, here are some others that you might be able to consider.
Because if they go with somebody else, they were never a good fit for us anyway.
Right.
But I know from experience, and you probably do as well, if you way undercut yourself just to get a client, you're going to pay for it not the way you want.
Right.
Because your expectations are way out of whack with theirs, because your expectation is still the higher price in your head. And they're going to treat you like somebody they just got a sweet deal on. Like they just went to Kohl's and had Kohl's cash, and that's how they paid. Yeah. And it's not going to be good. It's just not, because they don't have that price in mind. So there's
like we said earlier with that respect factor that comes into play. And then that could lead to like reviews not going the way you want them to go, and
Right. And
all kinds of, it's like, it all works together.
We are very much, not true. It's very much a review-based business, like, because people, it's comedy for the most part, right? So that's super subjective. So we have to have people who say, nope, they're funny, they're professional, but we also back it up because we have contracts. We show up on time. We follow through on things, and that's not what people expect out of like a comedy and entertainment troupe.
Yeah.
So that helps us really stand out and helps justify, a price we might have, because we can tell them, you do this, but we take care of everything. Like we show up, we walk on stage, and you're good for an hour. You're set.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about everything meeting those expectations. So everything that you're putting out online, down to your contract, is all in line with your brand, what you offer, what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't mean there aren't things I wish I can change, but small business owner and putting that hat on, there is only so much time in the day. So I focus on what's really important. For us, it is forms. Actually, the form on our website is really important. And I modified it to ask a few more questions that we would always get, and it would hold up the whole process. Something like, what's your budget? How big is your crowd? And when do you expect to do this? Right?
Yeah.
A lot of other things can change, right? But if we know those three, we can get a pretty specific quote out to them, and also have a pretty good idea if we can even do the show or not. Well, what happened before is a lot of back and forth, and then find out they can't even do the show because they're actually going to need it 3 months later than they thought they did, and their budget is $25 in the Snickers, and it's not going to work out. So that for me was worth spending a few hours one day fixing that form.
Yeah.
Right? Because that had a direct impact on the outcome.
Yeah. And that right there just shows, again, going back to your whole digital presence, because that form, I'm assuming, is online and everything. So it's like listening, monitoring, what's going on, and putting that all back into your digital presence to make it easy, not only on yourself, but on the consumer.
Because it saved us time by not having to like reach out and do a bunch of emails, right? But it saves them time. And as you said, you're dead on. If they're saving time, now I'm already showing value, right? Because I've already made it easier on them than I'm sure almost any other troupe in the entire region, which is how we can get a show over the Mid-Atlantic when there are comedy troupes in the area, right?
Right.
That's how we get that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And for my brand strategy company, it'll be the same thing. A lot of places offer somewhat similar services, but that's how we can stand out, by the way we handle ourselves professionally, by how we present ourselves online, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's the big takeaway here, is how you present yourself online and how it reflects what you're actually doing. That professionalism.
All those things,
all
because as we said, that people are irrational, right? So if in your head you're thinking, well, why am I not getting customers or clients? And you're doing it in a very logical way. We have this price, we have this service. What's the illogical reasons that people are using against you, right?
Right.
Is it something like your open sign in your window is never on? So because you just never figured out, you just never turn on, and everybody's trying to buy, like they don't ever see them if they're open, right?
Yeah.
The sign outside is peeling off, and inside is beautiful. Outside, the sign looks like it's falling apart. Great. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Add authenticity and trustworthiness and all those things. So
100%.
all of it matters.
All of it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we do judge a book by its cover.
Yes, that's how
we do. 100%.
Nobody walks in a Barnes and Noble and reads every page of a book and says, now this is a book I should read. You look at the cover, you're like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And you put it in your cart. You don't read 80 pages of it.
No, exactly.
You literally judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. And just like you said about the sign peeling, your storefront, the paint could be peeling. It could really need updated, but you walk inside and it's absolutely beautiful. But are people actually going to walk inside because they're judging it? They're thinking the inside's going to look like the outside.
Yeah. And that's different than a vanity thing too. So
yeah.
It's not about like you have the most beautiful, like you have to have $1 million suite.
Exactly. Suite. No.
It's just about a professional touch. I've dealt with businesses that it's just blue collar as it comes, right?
Yeah.
But it was still professional the whole way.
Yeah.
The way they communicated, if it was an actual store, the way it was taken care of, right?
Yeah.
Those things can matter. It's not about the money. Really.
Right.
At some point it can come into play. But if you're not doing the basic stuff right, would you spend money at that kind of place? I say that all the time. Would you read this post? Would you spend money at this business based on what you're seeing? If I spot out the name, the answer is probably no.
Yeah. Always look from the outside in. And it's hard to do that. I will say it is hard to do that when it's your own business, trying to look at it objectively, but you gotta do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps it up pretty well. I think we
basically solved branding. So
I think we did. We solved the world's problems. But no, seriously, thank you so much. And we're definitely gonna have to do another one again. For sure. We have a lot to talk about.
There's so many. We haven't even touched like half the things I had in my head. So
I know.
This is good.
Yeah, there were so many things. I'm like, I want to bring this up, but I was like, we'll do another. We'll do
another.
This
is gonna be a series. Hopefully, people.
It'll be a series.
I appreciate people listening to this.
Yeah. So thank you, Andy, and we'll do this again soon. And once again, I'm Lindsay Berta, founder of Berta Marketing, a marketing agency designed specifically for small business owners, where I handle all of your marketing so you can focus on what you love. For more small business marketing tips, subscribe to this podcast or find me online at bertamarketing.com. Thanks for listening.